This, of course, is the big story that we are tracking on Beyond. At this hour, if you're just joining us, Japan's former Prime Minister and also its longest-serving Prime Minister, Shinzo Abe, has been assassinated early this morning. He was 67 years old, and he was someone who has been credited with the transformation of the Japanese economy. The Shinzo Abe was addressing a political campaign rally early this morning when he was suddenly shot at from behind by a gunman, and we're given to understand that he was struck by 2 bullets. The incident happened in the Nara city, and these are the visuals of the moment when the incident unfolded. This was Shinzo Abe there addressing the rally, and then suddenly he falls to the ground bleeding. Now, the police immediately apprehended this man that you're looking at on your screens, who's said to be a 41-year-old gunman. An investigation, of course, is underway to try find out the motivation of this attack. It is not clear as to what prompted this man to bring out this gun and then shoot dead the former Japanese Prime Minister. Japan is one of those countries that's got very, very strict gun laws. People simply do not have the right to possess arms and roam around the streets. But this incident, unfortunately, early this morning when Shinzo Abe was addressing a political rally for the elections that are slated for Sunday, he has been shot dead.
It is a barbarian act amid election campaigns, which are the foundation of democracy, and is absolutely unforgivable. I condemn with the strictest words.
Now, the doctors of the Nara Medical University Hospital say that Abe lost a lot of blood. They also tried blood transfusion after a hemorrhage was observed. But then they could not save his life. Now, officials say that the former Prime Minister showed no vitals when he was airlifted to the hospital. But the suspect who's been arrested in this case is a 40-year-old gunman who was arrested from the scene of the attack. According to the local reports, he is a former member of Japan's Maritime Self-Defense Force, the country's equivalent of its navy. And also to give us more insights in terms of what may have happened earlier this morning, we are joined in by Professor James D. Brown, who's joining us live from Tokyo. Now, Professor, thank you very much indeed for taking time out and speaking to us here on Beyond. This, of course, is a shocking incident that has taken place earlier this morning. The longest-serving Japanese Prime Minister has been shot dead. Now, looking at the Japanese politics and also the profile that Shinzo Abe had kept since having demitted office of the Prime Minister 2 years ago, what do you think may be the motive of this attack?
Well, I mean, I think it's very difficult to talk about the motive of the attacker until we know a little bit more. It could be politically motivated. It could also be someone who is sadly, not in their right mind. But when it comes to Abe's political role, he was still very, very active. After stepping down as Prime Minister, his health had recovered. He'd become the leader of the largest faction within the ruling Liberal Democratic Party. And he was really on course to, perhaps for decades to come, play a very important role within the LDP. People were not even ruling out the possibility that he could come back for a third stint as Prime Minister.
Right now, and also, considering the fact that there is a legacy that Shinzo Abe has left behind him. Japan, of course, has a pacifist constitution. Shinzo Abe was someone who wanted to try break away from that mold. He wanted to bring Japan back front and center into world politics, and he was also someone who was a big proponent of the Quad alliance to take on a belligerent China. What do you think has been his contribution in terms of how he has positioned Japan on the stage of world politics?
Yeah, I think the first point is about the visibility of Japan. I think prior to Abe's return to power in 2012, there was a period of time when Japan really wasn't getting much attention. It seemed like there was this constant turnover of prime ministers, and people weren't really paying attention to Japan's important role economically and politically. Abe changed that by saying that Japan would never be a second-rank country and really trying to promote Japan on the world stage. And one of the ways that he did this is loosening the post-war restrictions on Japan's actions as a military power. So he reinterpreted the constitution. He also boosted defense spending. He didn't actually revise the constitution entirely, but it was towards that direction that he was moving.
Absolutely, indeed. And also one of the other big contributions of Shinzo Abe has been in terms of how he's been what many would describe as a force of stability, as a presence who gave stability to Japanese politics that had been extremely unstable at the time that he had taken charge. So how do you see this long tenure that Shinzo Abe has had at the helm of affairs in Japan changed politics domestically in Japan?
Well, I mean, I think if you ask the sort of educated person around the world to name Japanese prime ministers in recent years, most of them wouldn't come up with very many, and that's completely understandable because most of them, came and went in a short period of time, didn't leave much of a mark. And Abe was so different because he was there for so long, and he really did make some important changes. And another one to emphasize is the free and open Indo-Pacific. It's become a term that we use quite regularly now. It's one that's been adopted by various countries. It's contributed to the Quad format. And Abe can very much take credit for being the one who really popularized that and pushed that idea forward.
Absolutely, indeed. And one other segment where he has contributed a lot is in terms of how he's changed Japanese economy. Abenomics, as it came to be called, not many people are convinced of its success, but he tried to infuse a new energy into an economy that was in fact flagging down, that had slowed down a lot. Do you think Shinzo Abe was able to turn things around for the Japanese economy?
I think that he perhaps didn't achieve all of the success that he was hoping for in that area, but he really tried everything possible. The Japanese economy before Abenomics was very stagnant, didn't seem to be going anywhere. Now, he didn't achieve the sort of breakout velocity that he was looking for by having the radical monetary stimulus that was associated with Abenomics. But still, if you compare the economy's performance during the Abe era and before it, then clearly it did make some contribution to try and enliven what had been really quite a stagnant situation.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Brown, for joining us from Tokyo and getting us all those insights. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.